The American Civil War was a defining moment in history, shaping the future of the United States. As soldiers marched into battle, they didn't just carry weapons. Each item they packed told a story of survival, strategy, and the personal experience of war. From essential tools to mementos, soldiers relied on these objects to endure the harsh realities of the battlefield. But what exactly did they carry in their knapsacks? And how did these items help them navigate through the most brutal conflict the nation has ever seen? In this video, we'll uncover 11 fascinating objects carried by American Civil War soldiers, revealing how these items played pivotal roles in both their survival and the larger war effort. If you're passionate about history and want to learn more, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insightful looks into the American Old West. Musket. During the American Civil War, the majority of soldiers were armed with single-shot, muzzle-loading rifled muskets. The most prevalent of these was the Model 1861 rifle musket, a weapon that became the standard issue for the U.S. Army. It was widely recognized by its association with Springfield Armory in Massachusetts, where it was first produced, leading to its nickname, the Springfield Model 1861. However, as the war intensified, the government sought to meet the growing demand for firearms by contracting with numerous private manufacturers to produce these muskets. The process of loading and firing this weapon was methodical and time-consuming. To prepare the musket for discharge, a soldier would begin by inserting a cylindrical paper cartridge into the muzzle of the gun. This cartridge contained a cone-shaped .58 caliber lead mini-ball, a type of ammunition designed to be more accurate and effective than previous round balls. Once the cartridge was in place, the soldier used a ramrod attached to the musket to push it firmly down the barrel. After ensuring the ammunition was seated properly, the soldier would then place a percussion cap onto the nipple at the rear of the barrel, which would ignite the gunpowder when struck by the hammer. With everything in place, the soldier could cock the hammer, aim, and fire. The entire reloading process was lengthy, taking approximately 20 seconds for an average soldier to complete. However, experienced soldiers who had honed their skills in battle could reload at a faster rate, often managing to discharge up to 5 rounds per minute. This time-consuming procedure reveals much about the nature of warfare during the Civil War. Soldiers had to be disciplined and precise, as the musket's relatively slow reloading time meant that each shot needed to count. The widespread use of the Springfield Model 1861 also reflects the technological advancements of the era, as it played a crucial role in shaping the tactics and outcomes of many key battles throughout the war. Cartridge box and cap box. The soldier's cartridge box and cap box were essential items in his gear, both carried on a belt worn around his waist. The cartridge box, which was crafted from leather, was designed to securely hold up to 40 cartridges. It featured a metal liner inside to keep the cartridges organized and prevent them from shifting during movement. Additionally, the soldier often carried an extra 20 to 40 cartridges in his haversack, ensuring that he had a sufficient supply of ammunition during extended periods of combat or travel. The exterior of the cartridge box was often marked with a metal box plate, which served as an identifier. Union soldiers' boxes bore the letters US, while Confederate boxes were marked with CS. This small detail not only served a practical purpose, but also became an important symbol of the soldier's allegiance. A fully loaded cartridge box was relatively heavy, with its contents weighing about 4 to 5 pounds due to the weight of the lead mini-balls. The box was designed with a slot on the front, providing space to store musket tools, which were necessary for maintaining the weapon during battle. In addition to the cartridge box, soldiers carried a cap box, a smaller leather container that held the percussion caps needed to fire the musket. These tiny brass caps were crucial for igniting the gunpowder inside the cartridge when struck by the musket's hammer. The cap box was designed to keep these small, delicate items organized and easily accessible, as a soldier's ability to quickly load his musket depended not only on having the right ammunition, but also on having a steady supply of percussion caps. The combination of the cartridge and cap boxes reflects the complex and methodical nature of soldiering during the Civil War. These items were not just accessories but essential tools that directly impacted a soldier's efficiency and effectiveness in battle. Carrying the right amount of ammunition and ensuring that everything was in its proper place were vital for survival in the chaos of war. Shoes. Footwear among soldiers during the Civil War varied, but a common choice for both enlisted men and officers was the brogan. These were simple, straight-cut, all-leather shoes that were designed to be versatile, with no distinction between a left or right foot. While initially designed for practicality, over time, the leather would mold to the shape of the wearer's foot, often making one shoe more comfortable than the other after prolonged use. Despite their durability, brogans were not without their issues, and many soldiers found them uncomfortable, especially after long marches. Some soldiers, particularly from the South, were forced to go barefoot at times. This was often due to a combination of factors, including the wear and tear on their shoes, the poor quality of the footwear they had, or simply a lack of availability. For these men, going without shoes became an unfortunate reality, further exacerbating the harsh conditions they faced during the war. The constant strain of walking long distances in poorly made shoes or without any footwear at all contributed to many soldiers' physical ailments. Additionally, socks, typically made of cotton or wool, were often in short supply. They generally wore out much faster than shoes, and soldiers found themselves requesting new pairs frequently in letters to their families. These letters frequently reflected the struggles soldiers had not just with weapons and supplies, but with the basic necessity of keeping their feet protected and comfortable. The scarcity of good quality socks and shoes highlighted the dire logistical challenges faced by both armies during the war, where personal comfort was often sacrificed for survival and combat readiness. Footwear, while seemingly a minor detail, played a significant role in the physical toll the war took on soldiers. Their inability to maintain proper footwear often led to blisters, sores, and fatigue, which in turn affected their overall health and effectiveness in battle. The discomfort of ill-fitting shoes or lack of socks painted a stark picture of the hardships endured by soldiers on both sides of the conflict. Bayonet. The bayonet, a metal spear that was attached to the muzzle of a musket, was primarily designed for close-quarters combat. Although it is often associated with fighting, the bayonet was not commonly used as a weapon during the Civil War. In fact, it accounted for less than 1% of the combat casualties throughout the conflict. Its role as a weapon in battle was largely secondary to its practical utility in everyday life for soldiers. In reality, the bayonet served a much more significant purpose as a multipurpose camp tool. Soldiers would often use it for a variety of tasks such as digging, which was essential for creating defensive positions like trenches or latrines. It was also useful for cooking, allowing soldiers to hold a pot over a fire, especially when a more specialized tool was unavailable. This adaptability made the bayonet an indispensable item in the soldier's kit, far more useful in non-combat situations than on the battlefield. The bayonet was carried in a scabbard that was attached to the soldier's belt, along with other important items such as the cartridge box and cap box. This made the bayonet easily accessible, whether for practical use around camp or, on rare occasions, for defense in hand-to-hand combat. Its placement alongside essential supplies reflects its dual role. While it was meant to be a weapon, its real value often came from its utility in the daily life of a soldier. While soldiers prepared for battle, they were also constantly engaged in the mundane tasks of survival, and tools like the bayonet played an essential part in making life on the front lines more manageable. Despite its historical reputation as a combat weapon, the bayonet's true significance lay in its versatility and the small everyday ways it helps soldiers endure the hardships of war. Uniform. The standard uniform worn by Civil War soldiers was primarily made of wool, a fabric chosen not for style but for its practicality. At first glance, wool might seem like an odd choice for those serving in hot climates, yet it offered a range of benefits that made it well suited for military use in all seasons. Wool has natural moisture-wicking properties, meaning it helped draw sweat away from the body and allowed air to circulate. This kept soldiers relatively cooler during warmer months. In cold weather, wool's dense fibers provided insulation, retaining body heat more effectively than cotton or linen. Wool was also more resistant to water and more durable overall, giving soldiers some protection against the elements and the wear and tear of constant marching and fieldwork. The uniform itself consisted of several key pieces. Trousers were often kept in place by suspenders rather than belts, offering comfort and flexibility. Over a base layer, typically a cotton or flannel shirt, soldiers wore a short, loose-fitting coat known as a sack coat. This coat usually had 4 buttons and was simple in design, making it easy to mass-produce and replace. The uniform, while not stylish, was designed to be functional and adaptable to different conditions. Color and style varied between the two sides. Union soldiers were issued uniforms in a dark blue, a color chosen for its association with the U.S. Army. Confederate soldiers, on the other hand, generally wore shades of gray or butternut brown. However, there was far more variation in Confederate uniforms due to the decentralized nature of the South's supply system. Many Southern states were responsible for outfitting their own troops, which led to inconsistencies in fabric, color, and overall appearance. Uniforms were more than just clothing. They were part of a soldier's identity and served as symbols of allegiance. But they also reflected the logistical challenges of equipping thousands of men during a long and difficult conflict. The reliance on wool, the differences in regional supply, and the wearer's adaptation to their gear all help tell a broader story of how ordinary people coped with extraordinary circumstances during the Civil War. Hat. The typical headgear worn by Union soldiers during the Civil War was a kepi, a style borrowed from French military fashion. The kepi featured a soft fabric body, a flat, circular top, and a short leather visor. It was relatively lightweight and easy to produce in large numbers, which made it a practical choice for outfitting an entire army. The kepi served both functional and symbolic purposes. While it provided modest protection from the sun and rain, its true value lay in its role as a marker of military identity. Officers often wore kepis adorned with insignia or decorative braid to indicate their rank, helping establish visual order within the ranks. The style became closely associated with Union soldiers and contributed to the standardized appearance of the Northern Army. In contrast, Confederate troops wore a broader range of headwear. While some did wear kepis, particularly those who had access to early war supplies or were in better outfitted regiments, many others wore whatever they could find or were issued. This included slouch hats, wide-brim felt hats, and even civilian caps brought from home. The Southern supply system was often less organized than the Union's, leading to more variation in clothing and equipment. These differences in headgear reflected larger themes of uniformity versus individuality in the two armies. While the Union Army emphasized consistency and regulation, the Confederate forces often relied on personal initiative and local provision. As a result, a Confederate camp might show a mix of hat styles, with some soldiers appearing more like frontiersmen than formal troops. Headwear in the Civil War was more than just protection. It was a visible expression of the contrasting realities faced by each side. Whether mass-produced or pieced together from civilian life, a soldier's hat told a small part of the larger story of how armies were built, supplied, and visually defined during the conflict. Knapsack. Civil War soldiers typically carried their essential gear in a fabric knapsack, which was strapped to the back and supported by shoulder straps. In some cases, though less commonly, a soldier might be issued a more rigid leather backpack. These packs held what was considered the soldier's housing, the items needed to sleep and find shelter while on campaign. Inside the knapsack, one would usually find a wool blanket, which provided necessary warmth in all seasons. Soldiers also carried a rubberized ground cloth to keep them dry when sleeping on wet earth. In addition, they packed a canvas shelter half, a simple piece of material that, when combined with another soldier's identical half, could be assembled into a small two-person tent known as a pup tent. This minimalist shelter was light, portable, and efficient for life on the move. As the war dragged on and long marches became routine, many soldiers, especially those in the Confederate ranks, chose to lighten their load. Rather than carry the full knapsack, they began using a more flexible and less burdensome system, the blanket roll. This method involved rolling up the blanket, shelter half, and any extra clothing or bedding into a long cylindrical bundle. This roll was then slung diagonally across the shoulder and chest, allowing for easier movement and quicker access to contents. In addition to bedding, soldiers often tucked personal items into their blanket rolls. Letters from home, small keepsakes, sewing kits, or a piece of hardtack might be carried in this way. The simplicity of the blanket roll reflected not only the practical needs of a soldier on the march, but also the limited nature of what one could truly call home during a time of constant movement and uncertainty. Canteen. The canteen was one of the most essential items a Civil War soldier carried. Whether on a long march, standing in camp, or facing the stress of battle, access to drinking water was critical and often limited. Most canteens held between 2.5 to 3 pints of water. Though this may seem like a small amount by today's standards, it had to last for extended periods, especially when reliable water sources were scarce. Soldiers learned to ration their sips carefully, knowing refills might not be available for miles. The canteens themselves were typically made of tin or another lightweight metal, chosen to reduce the burden on the soldier. To help keep the contents cooler, they were commonly wrapped in wool or cotton fabric. This cloth cover provided slight insulation and helped reduce the heat of the sun from warming the water too quickly, an important feature during long days spent under open skies. Each canteen came with a simple spout and a cork stopper, which prevented spills and kept out dirt. It was worn across the shoulder using a strap made from leather or fabric, allowing easy access while keeping the soldier's hands free. The strap design also made it easier to carry while marching or performing daily tasks. Beyond hydration, the canteen often became a small piece of personal expression. Soldiers might decorate them, scratch in their initials, or write the names of battles they survived. Some kept small keepsakes inside the cover, turning an ordinary item into a quiet reminder of home or comradeship. Haversack. Before the Civil War, American soldiers were already familiar with the use of a haversack, a simple cloth bag used for carrying food and small personal items. Traditionally, these haversacks were worn at the side and slung over one shoulder, a practical but sometimes cumbersome design when marching long distances or maneuvering with other equipment. It wasn't until the introduction of the Model 1910 haversack that the U.S. military made a significant design shift. This version marked a major departure from earlier models by positioning the sack on the soldier's back rather than the hip. This change redistributed weight more evenly across the shoulders and allowed greater ease of movement, especially when soldiers were carrying rifles, entrenching tools, and other gear. Unlike earlier bag-shaped haversacks, the Model 1910 was essentially a wide strip of durable canvas. It folded in on itself and was secured with a series of adjustable straps, creating a compact and manageable shape. This folding method reduced bulk and made it easier to carry alongside other standard issue equipment. One of the most innovative aspects of the Model 1910 was its detachable lower section. This portion could be removed when necessary, helping soldiers reduce their burden during fast movement or short-term operations. It was a thoughtful addition that acknowledged the changing needs of soldiers in the field, where flexibility often translated into greater endurance and readiness. Though the Army continued refining its gear in the years that followed, the core design of the M1910 proved highly functional. It remained in active service through World War I and into the early stages of World War II. Personal effects. Civil War soldiers traveled light, not by choice, but by necessity. Every item they owned had to be carried by hand or on their backs, meaning personal belongings were few, but often deeply meaningful. Despite the limited space in a knapsack or blanket roll, Many soldiers found room for a handful of personal items that offered comfort, practicality, or a link to life beyond the battlefield. Writing materials were common, sheets of paper, envelopes, and pencils, allowing men to send letters home, record their thoughts, or write poetry and prayers. A small Bible or religious tract was frequently included, reflecting the strong role faith played in many soldiers' lives during times of hardship. Diaries were another treasured item. These handwritten journals often contained day-by-day accounts of marches, weather, meals, and thoughts about home or the uncertainty of war. Today, these diaries provide valuable first-hand insights into daily soldiering during the Civil War. For moments of leisure or camaraderie, many soldiers packed playing cards or small musical instruments, such as a harmonica or jaw harp. These lightweight items offered entertainment and a break from the monotony of camp life. In a world without radios or smartphones, music and games were powerful morale boosters. Personal grooming tools were also carried when possible. A soldier might include a razor and soap for shaving, a small mirror, a toothbrush, though still a novelty at the time, and a comb. A basic sewing kit, sometimes called a housewife, was vital for mending torn uniforms or replacing missing buttons. Matches were kept dry and ready for lighting fires, and a bit of soap helped maintain hygiene under often grim conditions. Tobacco use was widespread, and many soldiers carried a clay pipe and a pouch of tobacco. Reading material, such as an old newspaper, was a rare luxury and was often passed around among messmates until it fell apart from use. While these items may seem small, they provided vital psychological support. In the chaos of war, such tokens of normalcy gave soldiers a sense of identity, routine, and emotional grounding. Each possession, no matter how humble, helped maintain a soldier's connection to home and hope. Photographs. Many Civil War soldiers carried photographs of their family and friends. These images were often printed on metal plates called tintypes or on glass plates known as ambrotypes. To protect them, the photos were usually placed in small wooden cases that opened like a book. Soldiers also visited traveling or camp photographers who would take their portraits. These pictures were often mailed home as keepsakes. Within the Army of the Potomac, every division had an official photographer assigned to it during the war. By the time 1865 arrived, close to 100 photographers and their assistants had been approved to work in Army camps. These individuals captured the faces of soldiers, offering both a service and a sense of connection to loved ones far away. Photographs held deep personal meaning for soldiers. When preparing for a long march and forced to choose what few items to keep, they almost always held on to their pictures. According to Civil War veteran John D. Billings in his memoir, Hardtack and Coffee, a soldier would carefully slip his collection, sometimes wrapped in rubber or leather, into the inside pocket of his coat for safekeeping. From cherished photographs to simple sewing kits, the items Civil War soldiers carried tell us as much about their daily lives as the battles they fought. Each object was more than just gear. It was a lifeline, a memory, or a tool for survival in one of the most defining periods of American history. If you enjoyed uncovering these personal details from the past, there's a whole lot more history where that came from. Hit that subscribe button and saddle up with us for more fascinating facts about the American Old West and beyond.